Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks so much for joining us once again for our English News Edition. As usual, I'm Daniel Cook, your host, bringing you a translated version of the news weekdays at 6 p.m. The third and most recent poll conducted by IPR Marketing at Aura News for the cities of Tirana, Durrës, and Shkodra was made public last night on our program Tonight Il Vetare. In Tirana, the former Minister of Social Welfare, Erion Veliaj, from the left-wing coalition, is ahead of his rival Halim Kosova. According to the IPR survey, if elections were held today in Tirana, Erion Veliaj would receive 51% of the votes and Halim Kosova would receive 33.5%. In the independent category, Gjergj Bojaxhi would receive 11%, Sazan Guri would receive 3.5%, and Arben Tafaj would receive 1.5%. The left-wing coalition leads in Tirana with 64% of the votes, which is higher than the first poll, but about the same as the second poll. The right wing is currently supported by 34% of the poll respondents. The Socialist Party in Tirana would receive 48% of the votes, the Democratic Party 30% of the votes, and the Socialist Movement for Integration would receive 11% of the votes. In Durrës, it seems as though the race is going to be a tough one between two candidates, Vanjush Dako, who is running for the left-wing coalition, and his Democratic rival, Grida Duma. The polls currently indicate 51% to 46% in favor of Dako. In the second poll, Dako was shown as receiving 54% of the votes and Duma 46%. In Durrës, 25.8% of the voters who took the poll responded that they have not yet decided who to vote for. The left-wing coalition has suffered a decrease in support since the first poll, which indicated 58% support in Durrës. In this most recent poll, the percentage has dropped to 54%, which is still a solid lead. On the other side, support for the right-wing coalition has increased. If the citizens were to vote today, the right wing would receive 45% of the votes. The first poll predicted only 40.5%. In Shkodra, the right-wing candidate is ahead of her left-wing rival at 57 to 41%. There is also an independent candidate running in Shkodra who is currently receiving 2% of the support. The left-wing coalition in Shkodra would take 44.5%, which is 1% more than the last poll indicated. The right-wing coalition would receive 53.5% of the votes, suffering a decrease of 1.5%. Nationwide, if the citizens were to vote today, the left-wing coalition would receive 62% of the votes, which is higher than the 2013 elections. The right-wing coalition would receive 36% of the votes, which is lower than 2013. The 2,800 voters who were fictitiously added to the lists in Durrës and Kavaya will still be able to vote in the June 21st elections if the court does not make a final decision. This statement was made by the director of the civil state, who was called to the Central Election Commission to give his explanation of the issue. The Democratic Party is considering this to be an electoral crime. They have officially asked that the CEC remove the fictitious voters before the elections. The chairwoman of the commission responded, saying that they should be silent and allow justice to do its work. The Democrats' request did not come to a vote in today's commission, a fact that caused significant debates between the members of the commission and the party representatives. The economic experts are saying that just before the local elections, Prime Minister Rama is implementing a different strategy of public investing than that of the former Prime Minister Berisha. Prime Minister Rama's investment focus has shifted to the cities rather than the villages, according to them. They also say that in both cases, the investments are not well designed and would not be effective for the citizens. They estimate that the greatest impact on the economy will be felt only after the elections, in the way that the new municipalities are governed. They say that Rama is making the same mistake as the former Prime Minister Berisha, who also made investments just before the local elections. However, there is one major difference. The current Prime Minister is investing in cities, while the former Prime Minister focused on the villages. The economic experts argue that both strategies are aimed at maximizing votes, but in reality, they are harmful to the economy since the investments are ineffective. The government will assist the new municipalities during the period after the elections until December 31st, which is the end of the fiscal year. The government has freed up to $20 million to deal with problems during the transition period. Only after January 1st will the new mayors make independent decisions about taxes, investments, and funding. The IMF mission has arrived in Tirana to review the revised budget for this year, which the government is expected to make in July due to weaknesses in revenue collection. The experts will hold dialogue with the government leaders concerning the intervention that they hope to make. According to the experts, cutting the expenses of the administration is a recommended step. The IMF mission, together with the financial experts, will discuss the changes that could be made to the budget without increasing the budget deficit that was projected at the beginning of the year. Intervention will be made either in terms of income or expenditure. The IMF has previously recommended that the public investments should not be reduced, which means that the government may need to reduce other costs, primarily administration costs. Alternatively, it is expected that there will be suggestions on how to increase revenue. During their stay in Albania, the IMF mission will hold meetings with the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Economy, and the Governor of the Bank of Albania. The IMF mission will also meet with the Albanian officials to discuss the new action plan for reducing non-performing loans in the banking system. At the end of the negotiations, and after the parties have agreed on the steps to be taken, a joint press conference is to be announced. The Italian citizen Giorgio Riformato and his 3 accomplices charged with drug trafficking were to be presented before the court today for the first time. However, due to a mistake by one of the attorneys, the court session has been postponed until July 1st. Apparently, the attorneys neglected to record the exact date and time that his client was supposed to appear. Mr. Riformato was the pilot of the airplane that crashed on Divjaka Beach on May 10th last year, carrying 300 kilograms of marijuana. Based on the investigation, it appears that the Italian Riformato and 1 accomplice entered Albania from Italy a few days before the event. It is suspected that the other 2 men were involved in trying to move the drugs off of the plane before the police arrived. 94 kilograms of the drug had been moved when the police forces arrived at the scene and were found hidden near the crash site. "16 people who were arrested a year ago in the Lazarat takedown will appear before the court today as a structured criminal group. The group is being charged with the cultivation and production of narcotics and resisting law enforcement officers. Led by a man named Gata Mahmatai, the group is charged with committing these crimes over an extended period of time, which culminated during the police operation to restore order to the town of Lazarat. The prosecution of serious crimes with the evidence provided by the state police has concluded that in addition to cultivating, producing, and selling the drugs, the defendants were involved in an action against the armed police forces. This is the first group of people from Lazarat to be sent to the Court of Serious Crimes, and the investigation is ongoing into other people who may have been involved. That concludes our news for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. Please join us again tomorrow at the same time for more Albanian news in English. Thanks. Have a great night.